Alrighty, this is Jody Bergeron. We're going to talk about the 9 habits of the highly effective teacher.
Mark Piercy.
Tim Thomas.
Chris Strohmeyer.
Christian Thompson.
Alright, so we're going to talk about how this book has impacted us and how we are using this in our everyday teaching. So I believe that Mark's going to start.
Okay, I think one of the big things that kind of stood out to me and I kind of learned from the book was we talked about the triangle of balance. So there's 3 sides to that triangle, and the 3 sides the book mentions is the interpersonal component. So that addresses how we relate to the kids, how we relate to each other as professionals. And, you know, the book kind of went into the whole aspect of listening, being attentive listeners. Then the other side to the triangle was the technical component. So we also have to be knowledgeable about our craft in terms of the content that we teach. Good interpersonal skills, but if we don't have good classroom management procedures and create an environment where the students can learn, then we would still have problems. So it's balancing all those 3 kind of gave us a very good perspective and gave me a good perspective of the 3 areas I need to focus on to be an effective teacher.
And I like that idea you said about, making connections, because that really drives the kids' learning when you have a connection or a good rapport with the kids. So, I think that's a very critical component of learning and being an effective teacher. If you have good relationships with the kids, they'll be encouraged to work hard and to do things for you. So I like that.
Very important to build a positive relationship. Absolutely.
If you don't build the rapport, then you're not going to get anything out of the kiddo.
Very true.
If you can talk to blue in the face, but if you don't have a relationship, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's one thing. After reading this book, I've tried in the classroom to make a connection with each student, on whatever level, but just to where we are both familiar with each other. And that gives you, I feel like that's making that connection helps you have the rapport. And, on top of that, there's strategies that I'm starting to use as far as matching language, visual sounds, same tone, like when I'm working with the student, using the same tone that they're in, as well as body language, gestures. I feel like it takes it to another level.
Yeah, I think body language is important. You need to be aware of that, because if you do have the wrong body language, you're just going to put them in a defensive mode, and then you're not going to get anywhere. I was going to say one other thing is that we can't work in isolation, and we do have to engage with the parents and the colleagues and the other professionals also. And that's even part of building the rapport.
Yeah,
it's not just with the student.
Yes.
Yeah, if they know you're talking to their other teachers for their well-being, that's just that rapport is going to go deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it creates an environment where they feel that you care, where they know that you're reaching out to other teachers, so it's not just about science, it's more about me as a human being collectively, so you're looking at all of their development, all of their classes, and so, that's important, very important.
Absolutely. And I just thought of this, since all of us do transition with our kids, I mean, we're even taking it to another level, because we're getting to know them well enough that we need to help them figure out what they're going to do, or they can tell us what direction, and we can help support them in that, or have them think about something else. So.
Yeah, some of the kids, being special ed, we have them for, unless they become seniors, for 4 years possibly on our caseload. And we make that connection with those kids. We know those kids better sometimes than their parents do. They come to us before they go to their parents or their siblings.
I think it's good to have multiple skill sets too, because it's a diverse group of kids. They have different personalities, so learning, as Thompson was saying, just being able to have some tools like mimicking their body language, how we approach them in terms of not being overly aggressive, just to get them to talk, get out of their shell.
Tone of language. True. It's big.
And I think that's the benefit of being an inclusion teacher. Obviously, knowledge of your content is important. I mean, there's no question about that. But having a teacher in the classroom who's quote-unquote the expert in the subject, as an inclusion teacher, you have the opportunity to attack education from developing that relationship and developing that good rapport. And so that's kind of the benefit of having an inclusion teacher. So you're getting the content, you're also building relationships, and so you're doubling up, if you will, on that experience for that kid.
Well, I was going to say that the one thing that I'm trying to work on is to be more flexible with my schedule and to get out of my comfort zone, because I think all of us kind of get in a comfort zone. This is my little world in this room. These are my kids, and so I have to be flexible and think outside of the box and look at each child individually and, get out of my comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So that's the one thing that I took from the book the most, along with, it does say, too, in the book that we need to pay attention to our environment.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so we always have to be aware of that. I think sometimes we just get so busy with the pressures and all the little paperwork and nitpick things that we have to get taken care of. Sometimes we leave those things out.
True.
Every day is a new day with the kids and what they're dealing with outside of school, their mood, their mindset.
Very true.
Flexibility, like Jody's saying.
Well, and then another thing it said was we need to have self-reflection on our lesson plans, or our lesson for that day, because some days they don't go good, and then some days they run smooth, and I don't stop and really think about that sometimes, and reflect on how I should have done something different. So
Self-reflection is very important.
And sometimes the changes aren't big changes in the lesson. Sometimes it's just probably partnering the kid with another kid that can help with explaining the concept. I've seen where I've used that in a class where a kid is a little ADHD, a little off task, and just being able to pair with another student who's more focused helps that kid stay on task.
That's right.
That's true.
But that made me think of the kid that you're talking about. We have an ARD coming up on him. And that was something that you had told me, and I'm putting it in the paperwork. So now all the other teachers that work with this kiddo is going to know that's been successful for y'all, and maybe it will be for the other ones. And, it's good for us to ask others for support. And, I go to Mrs. Barsos lots of times for one of my kiddos, and she, we kind of network and we kind of brainstorm, and then she helps me to look at it a different way. And I think, okay, well, I really should try it that way. And that's, once again, trying to get out of my comfort zone. And so I like to be able to talk to others, and they can tell me a different way to look at it.
It's the old expression, it takes a village to raise a kid.
Say that.
Great minds think alike, that's right.
It's back to that rapport, like you guys said, not only in the classroom, but it extends to your colleagues, and that's very important.
I mean, I think it gets good too with even this personalized learning, that it's good to get the feedback from another teacher who's actually implementing stuff in the room rather than just reading it out of a book. So it's good getting that feedback from another colleague.
I know one of the things I got from the book, the main thing was, how do you take on stress? How do you handle stress? What motivates you? From reading the book and talking to other teachers, is everybody handles stress differently. I mean, some people will go to a bar. Some people, they go running or working out, after school. They go home to their family. They have family time. You got to have an outlet to relieve your stress. And that's, teaching for a long time. And as I've gotten older, I've had different outlets to relieve stress. And you don't want to keep stuff bottled up. You want to have an outlet just to feel better, you know, whether it's somebody to talk to or just doing something you love.
Yes, I go home and take a nap. I always wake up feeling better.
Definitely. That's true. That is true. That's true. The thing that I liked about the book was, you know, it's just saying, obviously, being able to lay the foundation for confidence. And, you know, that was kind of twofold, where it was talking about not only the content, but again, referring back to relationships with the kid. And so, you know, you're putting a combination of those two things together with the information that you're teaching them, along with having that good relationship, and you're creating that foundation of confidence for that student. And so, you know, and it exposed me in a way, because, you know, I think my strong suit is I have a good rapport with my students, but where my weaknesses are is in the content. And so, you know, the book kind of pointed out some things that I could start to put into practice to strengthen in those areas.
It's a good point that we probably could close on, because I think the word the book mentioned is balance, and I think we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and I think the challenge is trying to build a balanced development within ourselves so that we become more complete and more effective. So, like you said, Tim, is you may have a strength in just a relational proportion, and there are others of us who have procedural strengths. And some of us have content strengths, but it's trying to bring all three together to be more effective.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing a self-assessment, 2 or 3 times a year to find those weaknesses, things that you can work on. How can I get better?
True.
Well, I guess for the three of you coaches, I guess y'all do that all the time when you're with your players.
Yes.
I mean, you build a relationship, and then you're reflecting back on the game, thinking, maybe I should have done it this way. Or we could.
Absolutely.
So y'all do have a lot of that.
And what makes it different with coaching is a lot of times you have tools put in place. For example, film study, where you can go back and you can look at things. But for the classroom aspect, that's where it's difficult, because you don't necessarily have those tools. So Jody, like you brought up, doing a reflection after you put in a study or do a lesson with the kids to get that immediate feedback, like, well, this is an area that I can, make a little better, or have, one of the other teachers come and watch you, or something along those lines, to help strengthen, since you don't really have those tools for self-reflection or to help reflect.
Since you said that, I do have my paraprofessionals that go with us, with the kids out on the job sites, and I get to go. So lots of times when we see that a child is struggling in a certain area, we try to get together and figure out, okay, how can we make this easier or help them to understand this better, and not assume that they automatically know something.
Right.
As maybe you and I would. I would assume that if I said go stack those chairs over there, you would know that. But I have to think about, do they even know what the word stacking means? And so I have to sometimes stop. And the parents are real good about us, helping us. We help each other.
And that's, I think that's just one of the benefits of being in special ed, is that one of the key points about listening is not assuming.
Right.
Or not interpreting, thinking about what.
Can't assume anything.
Or not, or thinking about how the other person is probably interpreting what you're saying.
True.
So, a big part of compensating for that, I think, is just modeling certain things, going through the process, having role playing being done as well.
Right.
True. Okay. Anybody else?
Well, that's it.
All right. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.